Few seconds here. Okay,
You to mute.
I am going to record to the cloud. You folks are all set. Have a good meeting.
David, have a good evening.
Have a good night, Dave.
You too.
Okay. I want to welcome everyone to tonight's meeting of the Rockland Sewer Commission. This meeting is being broadcast live on youtube.com and being recorded by WRPS. On the agenda tonight, the listings of matters of those reasonably anticipated by the chair, which may be discussed at the meeting. And all items may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may be brought up for discussion. With that, I'll entertain a motion to open the meeting.
Second.
Okay, you're making a motion? I'll second that.
Yeah,
Favor? Mr. Ross?
motion, yeah.
Ms. Valley?
Yes.
Mr. Hession's a yes. With that, I want to welcome Sherry Valley to the board.
You tell her how they
Our
can.
first meeting. Hope it's
Hello.
not anymore. So, Sherry, if you want it, the floor is yours for a few seconds if you want it.
Well, I just wanted to introduce myself briefly. I've been a resident in Rockland for 35 years. A couple of years ago, I retired from a career in banking and banking operations. And though I have limited knowledge of the wastewater treatment, I'm bringing some solid business skills to contribute. And I look forward to working with everyone. And thank you in advance for answering all the questions I'm sure to have.
Well, Sherry, thank you. It's nice to have you aboard. We not have any continuation of old business from the previous meeting, which would be a superintendent's update. Ladies and gentlemen, you received the package of resumes. Dan, you got them?
Yes,
Sherry?
Yes, I did.
All right, did you get the alphabetical assignment to each of the candidates?
Yes, I did.
mhm, yes.
Okay, so what we're going to do is refer to them by the alphabetical letter. And I guess I'll start it off. What I'm thinking of doing, if it's amenable to you guys, is start the interviews the week of May 9th. That gives us a couple weeks in HR to do some background check, and I'm going to find out where we can background check. I was told by the Board of Selectmen that we have that opportunity. I'm not sure if all of us do or I do, but I want to look really hard and deep into these people. We have 4 candidates. They all seem to have adequate background. My feeling is to have all 4 in for a preliminary interview and screening. Sherry, you're the newbie, so we'll let you go first. How do you feel?
That'd be fine. I'm assuming that's one at a time.
It'll be one at a time. It is done in a public open meeting. I got to work out some logistics with Stacy on how we do this as far as names. But the way it's going to go, and Dan, is we agree on a set of questions for the first interview. We have to ask those same questions to each of the candidates. We can't deviate from that.
Mhm.
So between now and when they come in, I want you to put some real hard thought into some good questions. What I will do is I'll have Stacy send you copies of the questions we had from the last round. Feel free to add additional questions. Feel free to change the sequence. What we'll do is before the interview start, we'll submit all of them to Stacy. She'll compile them and get us the list of questions in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And what we could do amongst ourselves is agree on who's going to ask what questions, so we're not being repetitive.
Okay.
Dan, you up to speed with that?
Yes,
Okay, does the week of the 9th present any problem to you for interviewing?
no problem.
Sherry?
Oh, that's fine.
Okay, would you be adverse to say 6:30 or 6 o'clock PM? So we could do it on Zoom and the public has a chance to see it?
That's fine.
Dan? Any
No
comments?
problem.
Okay, then I'll make a motion that we notify Human Resources to schedule all 4 candidates. We'll work out a timing for them the week of May 9th. Do I have a second on that?
Second,
All in favor, Mr. DeRoss,
Yes.
Ms. Valley,
yes.
Mr. Heshenson, yes, that's unanimous. I will notify Stacy Monday. Tomorrow's a holiday.
Chuck, I believe the town hall's closed on Monday as well.
Okay, then it'll have to be Tuesday. Damn, see, being retired, you don't know these holidays. Make a note of that.
I never had this holiday off.
You never worked your life.
Hey, I put my time in.
Okay, let's move to the sewer ordinance update. Again, I'd like to bring this to a vote tonight. If not, if it's contentious and there are issues, we can see if we want to table it for another meeting. But what I did is I had Robin submit everything we've been discussing that I could see on it. So why don't we just take it, if you have the ordinance, we'll go right down 2.4 and go through them. 2.4 is new sewer and new sewer connections. The question I had on A, it says any person proposing an extension of the public sewer shall notify the commission 45 days prior. That could be, Dave, and you could jump in on this one. I'm looking at as extension is maybe adding on to an existing system. Is that how you read that? Dave?
Still trying to pull up the paperwork. You are on the ordinance, so
Yeah, the ordinance, 2.4A. It says any person proposing extension of the public sewer shall notify the commission 45 days prior. The only thing I would say is of that 45 days, do we want to make it 60 to be consistent with the rest of the ordinance? Or if that is for an extension of an existing line and you feel 45 days is sufficient, we can leave it. Is that how you determine that?
I'm not sure how I'm reading that. I'm not sure when you're considering the 45 days.
When 45 days, it'd be when they submit the plans for the extension. What, when they bring us the plans.
I'm not sure. I'm not actually understanding what you're referring to as an extension.
Well, that's what I wanted some clarification on. That's how it reads in the ordinance. It reads right in the ordinance, the first one on page 15, any person proposing extension of the sewer. Now, is that an extension of the existing sewer, or do you want to just delete that? I'm saying anyone proposing connection. And if it's connection, it's already addressed.
I don't know. I like I said before to you, I would probably get these over to legal before we start paraphrasing.
I thought they had a copy of it.
I thought that was done.
Huh? What's that beeping?
I have no idea.
Did you forward a copy of it?
I didn't do this. This is yours.
Okay, I'll send it off tomorrow, so we might as well go through the ordinance anyway. Oh, no, wait, we did that with the attorney the last meeting. He didn't have any problems with it. We had that with, who was the, from Bob's office? He reviewed it with us. Adam, I forget his name.
His name was Tony Riley, but I'm not sure if he reviewed all of this in depth during that meeting.
Well, I know he got a copy of it because he did have a copy of it. I will check with him tomorrow. We can vote on it today pending his approval. So with 4, do we need to make that why don't we just leave that as a, how do we word that as an extension of a public, or just say drop it? Any person proposing a connection to the public sewer shall notify at least 60 days prior, because that's the way it reads in the other ones. Sherry, you got any comment
I
on it?
would agree that a connection makes more sense. Because if they have some kind of sewer connection and they're extending it, that's still a connection. So that
Okay,
makes sense to me.
Dan?
I agree. I mean, if they come down and get approved, they have 45 days to collect.
What I would do is I change that to 60 to be consistent with the rest of the ordinances.
There are other sections that all reference 60.
Okay, so let's leave that at 60.
Okay.
So we all set with 2.4A then?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes,
Okay, I'll send that off. I removal for large sewer users. It states any proponent proposing add additional flow to the system greater than 440 gallons per day. Average daily flow must remove 11 gallons of infiltration and inflow for every gallon of wastewater they propose to add to the system. What I'd like to add in is while maintaining a flow rate to the wastewater treatment plant at or below the permitted capacity as regulated by our permit. The other thing I'd like to do we agree with that or disagree with that, Sherry?
No, I agree with that.
Dan?
I agree.
Okay, the one thing I had heartburn with in that, it says, there's a paragraph in there that states, the town may, at its sole discretion, allow the proponent to pay a one-time fee to the town in lieu of waiting for I&I sources to become available for the proponent to remove. The fee in my book, it reached $10. We booked that up to $20 per gallon of new discharge. Now, to the 11-to-1, I don't think is negotiable. I think that was in our accepted corrective actions to the admin order. But what I would like to do is take that in lieu of waiting right out of it and have it read what I put down below, that the flow capacity must exist at the time of application for all new connections to the Rockland sewer system. All applicants, residential, large developments, institutional, business, commercial. I'm going to strike municipal because they don't pay. Must pay a one-time development fee that no matter who connects, they have to pay to the Rockland Sewer Department. They'll be placed in the department's inflow and infiltration account, which will be applied to the elimination of I&I sources identified by the Rockland Sewer Department. I think the flow has to exist for us to give it out. Like, we can't give what we don't have. So is everyone happy with that, or they disagree with that, or
I agree.
Sherry?
So the question is, you're striking in lieu of waiting so that they pay the fee.
I wanted to read as it says there, the flow capacity must exist in all applicants, residential, large development, institutional, business, or commercial, must pay a one-time development fee to the Rockland Sewer Department.
So they don't have to wait for the I&I to be removed.
No, they have to wait. It has
They
to.
have to wait. Okay,
I put the first line. It has to exist at the time of the application.
got it. The other question I have is at $20, and this may be a lack of knowledge, but that doesn't really cover 11-to-1 remediation.
No, but we went up. It was $10 for forever and a day. We went up to 20.
Okay.
I would say if we want to revisit that fee, I would say hold off till we get the rate study.
Okay.
That rate study may be change the whole ballgame on money, so I have no idea.
Okay.
Dan, you agree with that?
Yes,
Dave, you agree with that, holding off on that increase?
I mean, I would. You just did that in July.
Yeah, see. All right, so are we happy with that,
Yes.
yes,
Dan?
Chuck,
yes.
can I ask a question, Chuck?
You. Go ahead.
Where it says the town may allow this fee to be paid in place of performing the work necessary to comply with the 11-to-1 reduction
No,
program requirements, you're deleting that?
I'd like to delete that. Yes, I can send you up a clean copy tomorrow.
Right, but that's the language that allows us to receive the fee and remove the I&I, which is typically the way that we do it. Am I wrong in that?
Well, that's what I'm replacing with, if I'm saying down below in the red, that the flow capacity must exist at the time application for all new connections to the sewer system.
Right.
And
I
I'm saying-
understand that, but if you delete that section, then you're putting the burden of removing the 11-to-1 on the developer and not us. And typically, we're in charge of removing the I based on that fee. So I just want to be clear on that section, that's all.
Okay, we can change yenning it to be identified and removed by the Rockland Sewer Department. Would that be sufficient?
Well,
Well,
do you want it as an option? Or
No,
do you want it as, that's like the mandate?
that's a mandate.
So always the Rockland Sewer Department, but never the
But
developer.
we could subcontract it out up to the superintendent. The repair work you're talking, the I&I work.
right.
I mean, that's up to the board. I mean, I,
What are you comfortable with? What would you say?
well, I mean, I'm not gonna be here, so it's not really,
No, but
I
I'm
mean, that
asking
would
you. I'm asking-
really be up to the board. I would think you would want to leave it a little open so you have the option, depending on what type of work has to be done, because that might limit you if, say, you have a big project and then and they and then they have to do a connection out to where maybe there's bad sewer piping, and then at that point, they may have a contractor that already has a smaller amount than what we would contract out for. They may be open to, updating that infrastructure, whether it be, piping, manholes. So I don't know if you want to close yourself off and just leave it as one option. I think you'd want to leave that open, whatever is going to be more economical for the town.
Okay, but what I'm getting is I just want them to know that they have to remove it before they connect. We have to remove it before we connect. And I'm saying identified by the Rockland Sewer Department, removal will be at the discretion of the Rockland Superintendent, Sewer Superintendent, and the Board of Sewer Commissioners. How would you want to see that ended? Sherry, Dan, how do you want to?
Everything should come to the commissioners before it goes out.
Well, it does. I mean, we have to approve the comments, but I see what. And again, if it's going to be going out for work, we have to get quotes anyway.
Would you consider rewording that sentence to say that payment of this fee does not remove the obligation to have the I&I remediated?
No, I want the I&I removed before they connect.
Right, but if you leave that statement in there that says the town may allow this fee to be paid in place, that doesn't necessarily mean that you can't collect the funds and remove the I&I before they're ready to connect, does it? Because you want to keep the responsibility of,
Yeah, but what it says, it may be paid to town in lieu of performing the work necessary. I want to get out, I want to say the work has to be performed, is what I'm
Right.
getting at.
but I'm just trying to think out loud here, but if you are freeing up the capacity before you give it out,
Yep.
you already know you have it on hand, you're giving it to someone, they're giving you the check in lieu of removing it, and then you go and remove even more I&I, and you pass that along to the next person, so you're ahead of the game.
That's what I'm trying to do, Robin. That's great. I'd keep going with that.
Okay, so I think that sentence in there that the town may allow this fee to be paid suffices for what you're trying to do, as long as you're ahead of the game with the capacity. 'Cause
Okay,
you're just
so I
passing it
see what you're
along.
saying now, but you can correct me if I'm wrong, because I like what you're saying. So we leave that in and just continue with that saying the flow capacity must exist at the time of application for all new connections.
I agree. I think that sounds good.
Sorry?
Okay. You do
Okay.
cover flow, you cover the flow capacity with that next sentence, so.
Can you agree?
Yes.
Thanks, Robin. I like that.
You're welcome.
Do me a favor, when I edit this, take another look at it for me before I send it off.
Okay,
Okay, permits, applications, and approvals. That is D1. All applications of approval are submitted to the Town Office of Planning and Zoning. The information will be reviewed by the board to evaluate the availability of sewer services and impact on the sewer system. We want to leave that. All applications are submitted to the Town Office of Planning and Zoning. The information will be reviewed by the Rockland Board of Sewer Commissioners to evaluate the availability of sewer services and impact on the sewer system. Why don't we say something to the effect that the information will be reviewed by the superintendent for the availability of sewer services and impact to the sewer system and forwarded to the sewer commissioners for approval.
Okay.
Dan,
Yes.
Sherry?
Yes, that's fine.
Make note of that.
So, Chuck, just to be clear, so right now the process is the original Form K comes in
Right,
from planning or ZBA.
right.
That goes to the department.
Superintendent, yep.
So the superintendent will usually do comments on the original Form K as far as infrastructure upgrades.
Yep.
Excuse me?
Yep, I'm following.
Right. So they do, they do the comments in the comment section for the Form K.
Yep.
And then and on what we've been currently doing, all dependent upon, there's a clause that we normally put in there, all dependent upon approvals by the Board of Commissioners. And they're, whatever you guys approve.
All I'm saying is.
And how do you want to process that Form K after that point?
Well, once it comes in the Form K, there is a section on there that says sewer commission. All I
Right,
want to do is have that forward to say, yep, we've seen it. We know it's in the pipeline. We're aware of it. And then the superintendent can forward along. All I want to do is make sure we see the Form K where it says sewer commission. It's just that we're aware of what's coming in.
right, okay.
Now, if you go to D2, Dave, here's where I get hung up. Should we include institutional? D4.
Right, institutional referring to,
There should be, it says, okay, let me get that, D4. D4, for large development, institutional, industrial, large commercial facility. Okay, no, that was my screw up. No, eliminate that.
That whole sentence, the same 60 business days, you're
No,
eliminating?
we're gonna leave 60 days. We're gonna leave it as is. I want to jump back up to E, D2E. Dave, here's where you and I had this question. If a permit is issued, it says it shall be valid for no more than 30 days from date of issue.
are you referring to like just a basic connection?
I'm saying when we approve a permit for connection,
But are you referring to like a developer
right?
for 30 days?
Let's take, for example, okay, I'm gonna keep this nice and simple and clean. 365 Concord, no, I'm gonna even be better. Beechwood Estates. Beechwood Estates was approved, I want to say 2012, 2013, for original set of connections. They came back to us, and I believe it was 2020, and wanted to make sure it was still valid, and we voted them approval. That's a long stretch. What I'm saying is, should we say, okay, if you're granted an approval for a permit, you're tying up capacity. Should we say you've got 1 year to break ground and start using that permit, or you got to come back and reapply? Or apply for an extension. But if he applies for an extension, he's tying up capacity that we don't have.
So you also, but what's the reference also to your I as far as the hookup? So how does that correlate with the 11-to-1 I?
1101, well, we'll get into the 1101 in a minute, but when we issue a permit, when we say, for example, let's again use Beechwood Estates. Okay, they come to the board, we approve them for a connection. What I want to say is that instead of tying us up for 2, 3, 5 years, say, all right, you're not going to hang on the approval list forever and not do anything. What I'm going to say is you have 1 year to break ground. If you don't break ground in 1 year, you can come back in 6 months for a 6-month extension. And then that's it.
Right, but what I'm saying is you're also requiring them. So there has to be a correlation between
You're
the
right.
I that they have to give back. So how long do they, what is your reference to the I that they have to have removed? And how does that correlate with the permit?
Well, see, if we're granting them a permit, the INI has to exist. So we can't add another one until we have additional INI.
But that's what I'm saying. So what is the require? So you're looking to make them require, do the removal of the I.
Well, no, if let's say Beechwood Estates came in today, wanted approval for 10,000 gallons.
Right,
We have the 10,000 gallons. We approved them for that 10,000 gallons. Okay. We can't give them any more until someone else, till we remove some more INI.
right. But you're also, you're giving them a permit dependent upon the I removed. You made reference to that on your first ordinance.
Yes, that's what they have to, it has to be available. So
But what I'm saying is, how do you correlate the permit per days? Is it after the I is removed?
yes,
That's
Yes,
Yeah.
what I'm trying to make reference to. So you don't have, so right now you're kind of crossing over where you're working strictly on a permit here, but it's also dependent upon the I being removed. You made a reference to that you wanted the I removed before you hand them a permit, correct?
right. Okay, so the INI is removed and the permit's available for 10,000. We give them that 10,000 gallons. Now we're tying up 10,000 gallons until another 10,000 gallons becomes available for the next person.
Right, but say if you're granting them, let's just say per se, 10,000 gallons, you're looking to give them 10,000 gallons a day.
Yep.
They need to remove that to an 11-1. So you're saying they need to give back 110,000 gallons before you give them the permit, is what you made reference to in the first ordinance. So you say you were saying that they need to replace the I before you give them a hookup or a permit. So what I'm saying is, when does this permit activate? Like after the I is removed? Or-
Yes, it has to be available for them to be approved.
Okay. I think you have to have that. You have to have the wording in there, so you to make sure that's done right.
Say that again?
I
We'll
would
break it
say
up.
you would have to have the right wording for that to make that work right. And is 30 days too little? I mean, because I'm trying to get the correlation of when you'd say, when they come in and say, you have to remove the I, is what you were saying in your first ordinance.
Right.
Let's just say they have to. So they have to get that 110,000 gallons.
No, that
And then
maybe I wasn't.
When do you issue the permit?
Okay,
After?
maybe I was, what I'm saying is if you come in for a permit, we have to have that 10,000 gallons available. We can approve you. If it's not, you go onto a waiting list till we remove that 10,000 gallons. That has to be available.
Right, but what I'm saying is, let's not say 10,000 gallons. Let's just say you're working one unit at Beechwood Estates, and we'll just say it's 1,000 gallons.
Okay,
Okay, you
Yep.
also made a reference to that they have to replace the I. The
right,
I on 1,000 gallons is 11,000 gallons a day.
right.
What I'm making reference to is, when do they have to do that? Before you issue them a permit? Because you made a reference to that they need to do the I before you get a permit. So I'm trying to
Okay, but I
correlate.
think we should remove the INI to make it available for them. We're trying to play catch up. Maybe that's where I'm going wrong.
Do you see what I'm saying, though?
Yep.
Because you want them to replace the I, but when do you issue the permit? Are you saying that the permit is in lieu of the I?
No,
no,
I'm saying we have to have we have to have the capacity to give out. And what I'm trying to get to is we don't give out another until we've replaced the capacity
Right.
that they
So-
took.
I understand that, but what I'm saying is, let's just say you did that 1,000 gallons, you did 1,000 gallons for the unit. You also want them to do that 11:1 ratio, which they would have to replace with 11,000 gallons. So that's 11 times the 1,000.
Right.
So they have to do that. So what I'm trying to correlate that is when do you give the permit out? Do you give the permit out once the I is done? Or do you give the permit out depending upon them doing the I? Because 30 days probably wouldn't be enough for them to replace
Well,
the
I'm not saying
I.
30 days. I'm not saying 30 days at all. What I'm saying is that they got a year.
Okay, so what I'm trying to get a timeline down on when you want the I replaced. Is it before you give out the permit? Or is it the permit in lieu of, once the I is, they have all that in place? You know what I mean? I think the wording has to be right. So
Yeah,
what I'm saying is, do you give them the permit depending on I removal? And if they don't get all that I done within a year, then it comes off?
No, I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying now.
Does everybody understand what I'm saying? I'm trying to,
I understand what he's saying.
because the replacement on, say, a unit that has 1,000 gallons a day is 11 times that. So the said developer would have to do an I refurbishment of 11,000 gallons a day. Let's just say they did like 2 huge structures. So what I'm saying is, when is the permit issue? Is the permit issued after the I is replaced? Or is it in lieu of, you say you give the permit out in lieu of them getting the I replaced within a year, and then they break ground?
Well, what I don't want to do is I don't want to be chasing them for the I. I want it out. All right, let's table that one then. Because with the August,
I just don't want to see you get crossed over where, if they don't have the I done, but you've already given out the permit. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yep.
And then you're stuck in lieu, and all the I isn't refurbished back, and we're chasing the I at that point. So you might want to eventually do the wording that where you want that dependent upon I removal, or you could say is refurbishment or remediation of I. You know, the wording is going to have to be so it covers the town, the board.
Sherry, Dan, you got any ideas?
I would agree that the I should be removed before the permit is issued, just to be sure that it is expedited and completed.
The thing is, I don't want to have, okay, I'm going to put
But
myself.
I don't know how long that takes.
But that could also, that's
why.
why, Chuck, that's why I made reference. It could be the permit is in lieu of I being replaced, and they have, like you said, a year. You know what I mean? They have a year to do the I, and then they also have a year to break ground on said project.
Okay, what I
It's
don't
the
want to
same
get
thing.
into, what I
Yeah.
didn't want to get into was having them issue the permit, connect, and not remove the adequate amount.
Right, so you would need to
Then
do
what,
the,
you take the permit back?
right,
No,
you
you
would
can't.
need, right, you would need to do the right wording on that, so it covers that all I remediation would have to be, the permit would be dependent upon all I remediation. Then the wording's gonna have to be that it's been signed off by, a said certified engineer. Most of that, they could really break off of the SSES study, which you made reference to. So, which is 90% of the town's already done, so.
All right, let's table.
Chuck, can I say something as well?
Sure, go ahead, Robin.
So I feel like we're using the word permit, and there's a couple of different things going on. Typically, when someone comes in front of the board, they get approved for the project. It's an approval, not a permit. Then they are given their fees with the board. Once they have approval and they pay their fees, then they're subject to being issued a permit for the actual work, which is that drain layer reference that's in that section. Those are 2 different things. One is approval of the project, and I think that what you're trying to say is you're tying a year to that approval. Once they pay their fees, they can apply for the drain layer permit within that year. And that drain layer permit, the language in here says that expires in 30 days. So in my mind, you are freeing up the INI before the developer comes to you. Then you are approving them with a vote of the board. You're granting them a year to do the work. At some point during that year and upon payment of the fees, they get the drain layer license and then they do the work. Meanwhile, the town has the money and we're in charge of removing the INI based on that 11-to-1 ratio. And now we have gained the capacity to grant to the next person in line. That's my understanding of the process. And I'm not sure if it's everyone's or if I'm wrong and someone has a better description of how it works, but I just wanted to clarify a little bit between the actual approval and the permit.
That,
But I was just reading it right out of the thing and I was confused. It says if a permit is issued, it should be valid for no more than 30 days from date of issue. What
Right.
permit?
That's the drain layer permit. And I think we've been using the word permit interchangeably with approval, and they're two separate things.
that's correct, Robin.
I agree.
So the drain layers permit is when they actually connect to the sewer.
Correct.
Correct.
So that's once all fees are paid, the commissioners would sign off on the permit. And that could be just as small as like a residential connection, you know.
Right, but what I want to make sure is they don't connect before we have that capacity. That's what I'm trying to do.
Right.
Well, they won't be able to if the sewer department is in charge of the capacity before it gets approved by the commissioners. You already have to have the capacity you agreed earlier before you would issue anything. So we would be ahead of the game.
So you're saying D2E is the drain layers permit?
Correct.
It makes reference to that right after the D2E. And it has to be a certified drain layer. So if they're not already on the drain layers list, then the commissioners would also have to vote to make that said, whether it's a newer contract, you'd have to vote on them to give them the drain layers license.
Sherry, Dan, what do you want to do with that? Want to table it and for further discussion or?
I'd table it for now and have a lawyer look at it and go from there.
Sherry?
I'm okay with that.
All right.
I have some confusion on this Form K as being an approval or the permit is the approval.
So I'll go over the current Form K process. So typically what happens is you may get something from, say, the planning board. It's the Form K is the beginning of the process. So they'll send it out to, you know, whether it be highway, drainage, sewer, water.
So that
building.
just says, here's a new project.
That's correct. Here's a new project. This is what we'd like to do. Like if it's on the sewer, you know, the superintendent, like you would know what the infrastructure is around there. You know, I'll just say, you know, we'll say I'll just say that Holy Family thing just for reference, that schoolhouse. Like they say they have an old infrastructure there that's antique, you know, it's an antique. It's no good. You would say, you know, I would recommend that these are, you know, they should, the line needs to be redone. The structures need to be redone. You know, there needs to be engineering done, you know, as far as, you know, if there's infiltration. And then, you know, you would say you need, upon approvals, this is what we normally do. All this is the, you know, upon approvals of the board, you know, and then you would have to come in for the proper approvals. You know, also you would probably have, now where we passed a new ordinance back in 2020, if it's something like a multi-residential or multi-commercial, it could be dependent upon the grinder station, you know, especially if it's a if it's an over 55 or 62 40B development, which is a multi-residential development where you'd have a lot of wipes and a lot of products going into the drains. And then that takes a lot of burden off of the plant itself, and you're only dealing with liquid effluent at that point. And then, like what Chuck made reference to earlier, that Form K, what currently is being done is that Form K just goes on like a draft table, and it's laid out with the plans. They're readily available. But I think what Chuck referred to is then the process would be the superintendent would push that right out to the board, say, look, this is the Form K that we just got, just so everybody's, seeing everything right up front. And then, if the commissioners see that Form K, they would say, you know what, we like the recommendations. Please send that back. Come and see the board once you get the proper plans. And they would make the modifications. And then they may come in and present it. The board may say, well, you know what, we're looking for a little bit more because that structure is not exactly what we're looking for. Maybe it's making reference to like a doghouse structure, and we're looking for a solid structure that's properly has a membrane around it that will, keep the I out, just as examples. And then they'll have to come back in again. The board would say, we'll table it. Please come back in with a revised plan. So I think that's what Chuck was making reference to as well. But it's something that we've never, it's been a process, but it hasn't been a process. So we got to make sure the process is set up properly. And then it also lines up with what you guys are looking for as far as approvals, as far as when you want to ask for the I, and then also when you want to do the permit. So, it is a process. So this is going to take some time, I believe, to get everything so it's in line.
I think the Form K is a helpful tool for planning. And like I'm saying, all I want to do is be able to have the future board see it, know what's on the line. What I don't want it to be as a part of is the final scheduling, to using that to say, okay, you're approved.
No,
That's my question. Is there a
No, that's not
No.
it.
from
So
the
still-
sewer department that
it's
says?
still, no. So all the superintendent does is he'll make recommendations and then bring it up at a board meeting and say, look at, this project came in, here's the Form K, send it out before the board meeting, but again, this is a process we have to get set up. It's not a process we have currently, we've been going by older standards, but it's a process that we'll have to set up and then send it out to the board. You guys may make some modifications. You may want to tweak it. At no point have you given approvals at that process, but it also may be the starting point when that said developer has first came to the board. So the process starts, you know what I mean? But Chuck made reference also to, it is all dependent upon approvals. So
And
you're going to have to,
60-day review. So when they
Right.
do with their plans, their final plans, that's when the clock starts.
right. But you also have to be very careful. So if they're ready to come in, like we can't get it to the point where, you're denying, it has to be, if they're ready, they have to be able to come in.
Oh, no, if they're ready
We
to
have
come in, if they're ready to come in and they have their final plans, no, if they come in.
Right.
and they
But it
say,
may
"Okay,
not,
here's
but
my
it may
Form
not
K,"
be their final plans, because you guys may see something else. Something else may pop up and you'll say, look, we like what you've done here, but we need to change this. Come back to the next meeting, or I know you made modifications where you may say upon approvals upon, this change here, send a copy of the plans out. So you just, you got to make sure you have the proper process,
No, I
moving
think
forward.
that'll work. If, like I said, if they bring in their plans with a Form K, and if they want to start it, okay, that's fine, but the meat is going to start on them then. They've got a year to comply, to break ground. What I don't want to do is have what we have is someone come in and say 2015 and still expect their permit to be good today in 2022.
Right. But what I'm saying is you have to be careful on when you want to do when does that process start? Like, when does the process start for that year date? Is it from the original Form K, or is it
No.
upon the approvals?
I would say when they make their formal presentation, their final plans to the board, saying,
Right,
okay, here's what we're gonna do. Okay, you know what? You came in, you presented your plans,
yeah,
you got 60 days to approve. your clock starts ticking on that day.
Right. So that's the wording that you want,
Okay,
is what I'm saying. So that we would just have to be careful when those, upon this approval, that's when the start date starts.
okay,
So Chuck, can I add to that?
sure.
So just Sherry, this is for you. So what happened was we got a few people interested in coming in front of the board with their developments. We did not have a waiting list, and it became apparent that we needed one. But we were looking at the Form K as the first point of contact. And that's how we started looking at the list. And it didn't work out because they can come and get a new Form K every time they make a change with any department. And so then it comes back to us again. So that's why we're revisiting this. But there's a couple of other things, like when you pick the date, Chuck, for the Form K, so say they do come in front of the board, but then they get a new Form K from another department that makes the plans change, and then they have to come in front of sewer again. We have to be cognizant of that when we decide what is the date that you want to start with when you want to issue the year. And I'd also like to just point out that you did use Beach Street for an example.
Yep.
But Beach Street was approved in 2013, I believe you said, but that's kind of an odd duck, because that was approved with a different developer. And then the people in that development wanted to take over the project, and they actually had to go to court to win it. So that's what can happen there, which makes that like an odd example to use. I don't think that'll happen too often.
No, but what I want to do
So
is
I have a
time
question.
with specific timeline. I don't want us tying up capacity that we don't have.
So
Right.
may I ask a question, please?
Sure.
It sounds like this Form K is subject to change
It could
For a
change
number-
50 times.
a number of reasons.
Right.
So would it make more sense for the sewer department to be relying upon their own records and develop their own project form?
I agree with you. And the reason why I brought up the changing Form K is because if someone comes in front of the sewer board and is granted approval, and then it changes, the Form K changes or the plans change, they may have to come back in front of the board. Does the clock start ticking again at a year?
That's a good point, Robbie, because you know what we could use there for an example is 365 Concord. They came in for an approval of 40 units. We approved them for that. Well, that got all tied up in whatever. And even though they came back, well, I still haven't seen it, what it supposed, and I've heard different stories, but let's say the last story I heard was they coming back with a plan for 20 units, 1920. Yeah, it's a lower flow, but it's a different plan.
It is, but here's another wrench in the process. If you're going to free up the I&I first before you give it out, a smaller project might be able to get pushed further up the line because we can afford to give them the capacity and then use the remediation fees to free up even more capacity for a bigger project. So you don't want a big project to hold up smaller projects that could actually bring you more capacity.
No, I want to form this list as a first serve.
Right, but you might be shooting yourself in the foot if first come, first serve is a big development and we don't have the capacity for them, but we could do 2 small developments and turn that over and create more capacity for the bigger project.
Good
So
point.
that could muddle your timeline there. So you have to think of that as well.
Good point. Good
Well,
point.
that's why we originally talked, Chuck, about maybe 5, start off at a lower number to start with. Remember, we were talking 5,000, because that's a low amount of gallons available, which would allow maybe smaller projects first.
Yeah.
But again, you have to be careful on when you start the timelines on these. So,
All right, well, obviously this needs some more work. Okay, why don't we table the ordinance until after July 1st. Let's get what we have out of the way now. I think the more important one is the moratorium. What do you?
Before we move on, Chuck, who may I contact to just discuss this normal flow of projects?
I would say Dave or Robin.
Okay, thank you.
Jerry, you're more than welcome to come down, set up a time, and we can discuss whatever you want down at the plant.
Super. I
Just
would-
make sure Dan and I aren't there. You have to coordinate it through Dave.
That's correct. So we typically, I left that open. So if you guys want to just set up a time at different times, like we can meet, so,
That'd be great. Thanks, Dave.
yep.
Maybe you could tie in a tour while you're there.
Yeah, I don't know.
All right, I'll entertain a motion. We table this for further discussion for a date to be named later. In the meantime, I'm going to get some of this wording down to Tony for a double check again. Do I have a motion to table this?
Motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, Mr. DeRoss,
Aye.
Ms. Valley,
Yes.
and Mr. Hession's a yes. I will send this down to Tony and get his opine on it. Why don't we hit the moratorium? Because I think we need some revenue, boys and girls. We need some revenue quick. What we originally, in the original moratorium, there was some serious I flow numbers in there. And I think we've all come to the realization that we don't have the money to live up what we're looking to do with this 1101. With that said, I just want to, Robin, can I share the screen for a minute?
Sure.
Let me see.
It's on the bottom of the screen. If you hover, you'll see the share screen in green.
Okay, what we're looking at over here, is my cursor moving?
Yep.
Okay, what we have over here in this column are those that we have approved already and technically haven't seen the flow, with probably the exception of Lydia. I think we've seen half of that. Now, in this number that we've approved, we still have on the books Concord Meadows, which I took out, which was 6,300 gallons. Fidelity, I'm not sure where they are. I haven't seen them. That was only 250.
That's Carnivana.
That's what, oh, it is.
Carnivana, yeah, that's Fidelity Wellness, it was called.
Okay, so it's kind of, so that's 250 will go in there. We still have account for the flow for the new school. 1015 Hingham, the Commerce Pot Shop, Beechwood Estates, I took that out. Put in Dwyer, Monahan, in the brewery. And that's telling us right now, we've got 25,600 gallons, 25,600 gallons to remove. Or if you look at the INI, 282,000. We're not going to come close to that. What I'd like to do in this moratorium right now is we have to have a starting point. I'm saying we let these people that we have approved before July 1st in now. That's 25,000 gallons. Again, we don't have. But I'm looking at, that'll give us at least 350,000 in fees to start working on some INI before we grant out new permits.
Chuck, who are you referring to?
We already approved.
Which ones are you talking about?
Lydia, Concord, Wendy's, Fidelity, the new school, 1015 Hingham, Commerce, Beechwood, Dwyer, Monahan, and the brewery. We haven't seen their flows yet.
Well, okay, so, but Lydia Square, so I've taken them off of my build out sheet because that's already done. Concord Meadows is 365, but that hasn't been started.
Right, no, but what I'm saying, Dave, is we've approved them.
Right.
And I can't rescind an approval yet. So Lydia, I don't think we've seen the full amount, so that's there. These are all what we've approved. We're not going to get that 282 out. So I'm saying, let's get the fees we can, allow this 25,000 gallons to come in, even though we're way over it. I'm going to put up where we are on that. Just so you have an idea. Tomorrow, just for the background, we have a design capacity of 2.5 million gallons. Everyone is plenty familiar with that. Our permit max is based on a 12-month rolling average of 2.5 million gallons a day. You take a 12-month total flow, divide it by 12, and that's your average. As of today, our monthly average is 3.4 for March. February was 4.1. So our rolling average, what the EPA is looking at, our 12-month rolling average is still 2.94. That's 400,000 gallons over our capacity. So we shouldn't be allowing anything in. But what I'm saying is we need some money. But then again, and again, this is up to a vote. This is not up to me, but I'm just trying to give you some background. That we've also, a 12-month rolling average, we've been above it for the last 9 months in a row, and April is not looking that good. We've only been below the 2.5 million gallons in a month twice in 16 months. First one was in June of 2020, and the last time was November of 21. Now, a new permit requires that we report if our annual flow the previous year exceeds 85% of our facility's capacity of 2.5, which means 2 million gallons. I want to take it right out so you see it. Here's the language right out of the permit. That if the average flow in the previous calendar year exceeds 80%, of which is if we exceed 2.0 million gallons for the 12-month average or capacity overflows, we have to report. Now, we already have to report for 2021. Now if we trip April, which I believe if we trip March, we're going to have to report for 2022. So 2021, we're going to tell them how we're going to correct 2022 so we don't trip. Before we do that, we've already tripped. So they're going to be looking at us. And they're saying we got to submit a plan to maintain our compliance. Now, we discussed additional conditions in the 2007 moratorium, which was never followed, but we discussed it for 3 months in 21. We voted acceptance in 2021, June, and we said it went into effect in July. And we said we'll review it every April and September, which I'm trying to do, and see if it could be relaxed. If we don't, and to Dan and Sherry, if we don't relax it, we have no income coming in. We can't allow any permits. And again, don't let me make up your minds. I'm just spewing my things, my guts down. And I'm not stating names, which I already did. We've got 25,645 gallons, and that's without a couple of big hitters. So that means we have, we've got to, if we can't comply to that 1101 right now, because it's telling us we've got to remove 282,000 gallons. We don't have the funds to do that. Now, I double checked with Rick today. Again, he was told the same thing I was, that they were going to issue us the administrative consent order. Now, the difference between a consent order and a basic administrative order is a consent order, they're going to give you conditions. And those conditions are going to have to be met, or they're going to step in and make them for us. Now, it's my gut feeling, because I've dealt with the EPA before, is I think they're going to look at our track record. And they're going to say, there's nothing we can do with that facility. I think those conditions are going to be focused around the collection system. That's our pipe and our I&I. I mean, that's to me just common sense. If I was in the EPA, that's the first thing I would go after. Now I'm saying that if we allow what we've told we can come in, that's going to bring us in close to 350,000. Also, the other 100,000 to 200,000 we get if we get for town hall, from the town meeting. Now, the questions we have today is, do we want to modify that moratorium to the suggested changes so we can allow the approved to collect? Or do you want to say, okay, we can allow some in to connect and stagger the approvals, which I don't think will go over good with those that are approved, especially where they're approved before the moratorium. But either way, we've got to come up with two lists: approved and an order of pending approval. Who's 1, 2, and 3 next in the line? If we don't, I think we're going to get ourselves in a lot of trouble. I mean, we're bogged down now. So with that, I want you to keep that in mind when we're talking about this moratorium. And right off the bat, we have to change. If you look down at the 1, 2, 3, 4, fourth paragraph, as of June 1, 21, we've approved 35,000. Well, that's a valid number. We can't remove that 29,000. So what I'm saying is we may have to void that one statement right now and say before new permits are issued, where I have that under condition 1, 220,000. I think we're stuck in saying that we've either got to remove the 35,000 gallons as approved, or we give Concord Meadows, Beechwood, Concord Meadows and Beechwood a letter saying they have 6 months to tell us what their plans are. If they come back and say, well, we still want to connect, well, we're back at, we got to remove 35,000 gallons before we allow anyone. And again, we don't stand a prayer of getting 380,000 gallons in. So that's what we got to look at. So what I'm saying, condition 1, before we issue new permits, I said for now, we change that 220,000. And this again, I'm not asking you, I'm not mandating. I'm asking for suggestions. How do I get out of this share screen?
I think it's at the top.
Yeah,
So I'm saying that if we're going to allow those people that we have approved in Connect, we got to modify this so the EPA don't eat us up. I think we got to modify condition 1. It said before we issue any more permits, we've got to agree on a number. If we give Concord and Fidelity, Beechwood, excuse me, 6 months to let us know their intention, we could change that now to say we have to remove 26,000 gallons.
But Chuck, we haven't heard back from Beechwood. I can't remember the last time that.
I know, but I
in.
talked to Galvin and we technically have approved them. We can't take it away unless we notify them.
Right.
And now there's nothing in there to say how long they have to remain open. So I'm saying we send them a letter that states, hey, please, you got to let us know in 6, if you can't give us final plans in 6 months, your permit's void.
did
Or
Bob,
we dump them.
Chuck, will they be subject to the new rules since they were approved before? Or will they be grandfathered?
Well, that's the kicker. If we leave them in, then we've got to remove 300 and do we keep them on approved forever until we get that 35,000 out?
They
They
might
haven't
not
paid.
even be, they may not even be ready forever because they
Well,
have
that's what
a
I'm saying.
long way
How
to
do we
go.
get people- That's what I'm saying. How do we get people off the list instead of tying up capacity forever?
Yeah.
Which list do you have approved? So most of those ones you had on your approval list are all hooked up.
They're all, every one of them are connected. I don't think
Besides-
Concord is.
Besides Beechwood and Concord Meadows, and Dyer just started.
Okay, Dyer just started, so we still have to remove that flow. We haven't done it.
Well,
Beechwood, they had a small amount, but they came in for 1,980 more. Monahan Rink is still out there. Brewery's still out there. I mean, we have not removed that flow, is what I'm getting at. We've done nothing for the I&I to.
But the brewery didn't add anything.
I got it down, they added 700, so there's 0 discharge.
They were septic before, we thought.
No,
They're not septic.
they always had a line there.
So there's 0, yeah, but they're discharging now, so.
But aren't they discharging less than what was there before? I think is Dave's point.
Okay, so we can take that off, the 700 gallons. Or how do we make up that other gallons that we've approved? We cannot approve until we remove that. And I'm saying, we can't live up to our moratorium. We can't live up to the EPA corrective actions. I'm going to try to get by the skin of our teeth and say, okay, we're approved to 35,000 gallons. We've got to remove that 35,000 gallons.
But you'd have to double check also with the DEP, because one of those was Lydia Square, which circumvents all our bylaws. So,
But it's still flow through the facility.
but are you referring to the gallons That's the actual gallons flown, or are you referring to what we're supposed to put back?
What I'm saying is if we put it in, we've got to remove it. We still have to treat it. So it's still coming through. Even the school, we got to treat it. We don't charge them, but we've got to treat it and discharge. So that's it. That's part of the flow. That's part of the 11-1 removal.
Right, but what I'm saying is, you have, say you have Lydia Square, you made reference to Lydia Square, like that's done and gone. That's 2020. And you're referring to the 11-1 that we lost.
But we haven't removed the flow from Lydia Square yet. We still have to remove it.
Right, but are we talking about the actual flow or the
That's-
inflated number with the rate 11-1 ratio?
I'm talking the actual flow. If we go with the inflated,
Oh.
300,000. I'm saying we have to remove that 35,000 gallons before we even think of giving out another permit.
Well,
And that's
one,
getting
Double.
by with the skin of our teeth because we're not living up to our
right,
moratorium.
so 365 Concord is still depending upon your approvals, because they still have to come in.
No,
Yeah.
hold it. That's what I'm saying, Dave. They've been approved. Now,
They
what
were-
Calvin said.
They were approved on 40 units.
Right.
Now they're coming in with 19, so it should change the venue, but you
That's
can still
67
ask for the
based on-
INI.
That 67 is based on the 19 units. But what I'm saying, even if they're technically approved, we can't strip them of their approval. So we have to remove that flow. If it's 20,000 to 40, we have to remove it.
Well, they have to remove it. They have to pay you to remove it.
Right. What I'm saying is we allow them to connect, but we have to remove 35,000 gallons. We're not going to remove the 300. We don't stand a snowball's chance of doing that.
You're not. You're gonna remove what you have currently approved or pending is what you have to move forward with.
Right, that's what I'm trying to do. So I'm saying, instead of that condition 1, remove the 220,000 gallons to get us below the 2.5 is now 400,000 gallons. It's not realistic. So I'm saying change condition 1 before we issue a new permit. We have to remove 35,000 gallons of INI. That's all I'm saying, is changing the wording on.
Okay, but don't we only have to remove the number of gallons that they're actually using?
No,
No, I mean, to grant the approval? Isn't that based on the amount of gallons they're gonna use? Because then we inflate that by the 11-1 ratio and then remove that, but we only have to give them what they're gonna use.
right, we have to give them what they use, but before, we have to remove 11 for every one they put in.
Right, but before we grant them permission, we only have to give them what they're going to use because that's what we're gonna treat. Then we hit that number with the 11-1 ratio and take that money and remove 11 times what we've given them.
If you read the old moratorium back in from 2007,
Yeah,
it says we have to remove that 11 gallons. We have to remove for every one we put in.
right, but if we're giving them approval to tie in and we've already freed up the capacity because we decided we were gonna be ahead of the game, we only need to give them what they're going to use because that's what we have available. Then we take the money and we free up 11 times that amount.
Well, see, if we do that, then we're going to have that. We'll be doing the 11-1. But I'm saying if we take that money now for 35,000 gallons,
Yeah,
that's roughly $350,000. Give them that, give them their flow, let them go. We take that money and then we have to remove that 11. That's going to give us more flow, more capacity flow to release.
I agree. And that's exactly what I'm saying. But up front, when we approve a project, I'm just trying to clarify, we only have to approve what they're actually going to use.
Absolutely. That's
Okay,
right.
all
But what
right.
I'm saying, before the department issues another permit, we got to get caught up. And that was the purpose of condition 1.
yeah.
So what I'm saying now is I just want to, for now, until September, change that 220,000 to 35,000 gallons. That means before we issue another permit above these that are already approved, we got to find a way to quantify and remove 35,000 gallons of INI.
You're not.
Huh?
You're not gonna be able to do it right now.
That's what I'm saying, but I don't know how else that we can't just keep
The
adding.
only way you're gonna be able to do it is open it up to a small amount of 5,000 gallons and allow small development and let them do that 11-1 where it doesn't even have to be 11-1. You can, 11-1 is the minimum from DEP. You can do a 15-1.
I know that, but I'm saying, if we've got 35,000 that we added in that we haven't removed yet. You're 400,000 gallons over capacity now by permit.
Right.
How can we even justify saying, yeah, we're gonna allow that? We have to allow them in.
So what are you suggesting, Chuck? Where do you
What I'm
stand?
suggesting is we allow these people collect their money. If we've already got their money, do we have all their money?
Everything is paid right now upon all the approved ones. The only ones you don't have is Concord Meadows, which hasn't come to the board with their modifications, Beechwood Estates, and Dyer Street. That's
Okay,
it. Everything else is active and running, and fees have been paid. Those are off the books for us.
And that includes Wendy's, Monahan Rink, and Hingham Street. Those have paid and they've been up and running.
then the
Right.
way I look at it, and this is just one, I'm just one person. What I'm looking at it then, I cannot give another permit out, me, I'm just saying me. If it was me, I wouldn't give another permit out until we're at at least 2.5.
But like,
that-
look at Monahan Rink and Dyer Street. They're only like 7,600 and 4,700. They're
Okay.
very small.
It's a
But
two-edged,
also look at our permit. What is that? We're over
right, but
capacity.
it's a two-edged sword because you're not gonna be able to get the I&I, you're not gonna be able to go for that inflow and infiltration without the developmental fees. So you won't get to that point unless there is some small development.
And we're gonna continue to be, okay, then what we do is till the flow drops.
That could be summer, it may not be.
You're right.
You have another year where it just rains like it did last year.
And right now, we're 400,000 gallons over. What are we doing? How can we go into the EPA?
I'm not understanding where you're getting 400,000 gallons, so.
What's our 12-month rolling average? 2.94.
Right, but I don't understand where you're getting the 400,000 gallons.
Our capacity is 2.5.
But where's the 400,000 gallons you're talking about?
It's on your flow.
What's the correlations over 2.5 millions into 400,000 gallons is what I'm asking.
Okay, our rolling average is 2.9 million gallons,
Correct,
right? A permit is anything over 2.5.
right,
So at 2.9, we're 400,000 gallons over our permitted max.
okay.
So based on that, we cannot allow another permit until we're at 2.5 minimum. And they're telling us we got to be at 2.2. Not really. David, I know what you're saying. We need money.
So
What are
we're
we
gonna-
going to do? Keep
You're
throwing
gonna
more
be-
in?
You can't do one without the other, so.
So what you're saying is, and again, I'm not putting words, I'm not being a smart ass. So bear with me here. What you're saying is the hell with the EPA permit.
That's not what I said.
Okay. Well, how do you correlate allowing new users in?
You have to,
Permitted
if you're showing the DEP and the EPA that you're striving and you're trying to work to cut the I&I and move forward on cutting the I&I and try to decrease the flow by getting some of the I&I work back, the EPA and DEP aren't going to get upset with you because you're moving in the right direction.
All right. Can I ask you a question? Have
Mary,
we-
you can roll your head all day, but you know that's right.
I know,
If
but have
you
we
don't have
removed any
development, you're
I&I?
not going to be able to move forward here.
Have
And
we,
I'm not talking about large development.
have we removed any I&I that we can quantify to our discharge?
You haven't yet because you haven't started it yet. You haven't started any of the process yet. We've been talking about this process for months on how we have to move forward with it.
Okay, well,
It starts with the permitting process, starts with the developmental fees, remediation. I mean, we just started these matrix when I came on in 2020. It just started. So I'm not sure. I mean, I get what you're saying that we're overflow. So how do we move forward in paying for this I&I? It's the only thing I'm bringing up, and then I'm not trying to be wise.
no, I know you're not, Dave, but I'm as frustrated as you because we haven't been spending the I&I money where we should have.
Well,
Period.
that's right, but we can't go back to the past right now. You have to set something up so we can get done with the future.
And I'm
So we
saying we
can-
gotta get, before we move on, we gotta get that flow down. We just.
Right, but
if
what
we
what I'm,
can't get-
but
Okay.
what I'm saying is you currently have projects that that are already approved. You have the Beechwood, which is probably in all likelihood not starting
I don't think they're gonna happen.
anytime soon. You have, what is it, 365? What is it, Concord Meadows?
Concord Meadows.
So you have Concord Meadows, so you'll have fees there. You have Dyer Street. So, I mean, those are projects,
Right?
those are projects that are approved that have not, we have not got fees, remediation fees, developmental fees. So I mean, that's all stuff that you can get done now.
Okay, so,
I mean, you can't rescind them now because you've already approved them.
okay, no, I know that, but now you're saying that we haven't been paid for them yet, right?
No, none of those have been paid. But
Okay.
like I said, all likelihood Beechwood is probably not starting
No,
anytime soon.
let's just talk Concord Meadows, Dwyer, Monahan,
Dyer, yeah.
and the brewery.
So the brewery's
10-15
done,
Concord, and 10-15 Hingham.
right? The brewery was done. That was just that wasn't even a connection. They were already connected.
But
And they
the-
paid fees, okay.
That's it.
Okay,
So the only thing you have right now in progress is Dyer Street.
what about Concord Meadows?
That hasn't, I believe that hasn't even been approved yet from,
Well, I know that, but we've approved them.
you've approved them, but it hasn't been approved yet. So there's no fees generated until the developer gets approved.
So do I hang him up in lieu of someone else? I don't know what to say.
But you also don't have, it's also dependent on the process because we don't have
Okay.
the process
Okay,
set
so-
up to say you can't.
Has Dwyer Street and Monahan paid?
Monahan's already paid.
Okay, so we have that money in the bank.
Yes.
Okay, Dwyer
Robin-
Street has not paid.
Robin, those fees were already paid, if I'm correct?
Yep, 166,000 for Monahan Rink.
Oh, yeah, I see it. Yep, sorry. Thank you.
And
So-
Dwyer Street is,
Fees pending.
but he hasn't paid yet.
No, that's $214,000 and 600.
Okay, then we just hold off in the permits until we get that money, remove that I, and then we can issue more permits.
Correct.
Hold off on permits till we get what project?
Dyer,
Oh, Dyer, okay.
so you're looking for fees pending.
We're looking for Dwyer and Monahan. We get
Well-
that money. and we-
What do you do about, what do you do about the Primrose fiasco?
Primrose hasn't come before us.
All right, think that's something that's gonna bite us in the butt, so.
Well,
Aren't they approved?
no,
No,
They were approved by the last superintendent.
Okay.
never came before the board.
Well, how about,
That to me, never came before the board. That's not this board's problem. That's the attorneys to work a lot of.
what's this, can I ask a question? What's the status of that academy? That they,
If once we get who's approved on, we got to come up with a pending hearing list. And now, if you're saying everything is connected and we're waiting for Dwyer and Monahan, we've got to come up with pending. What I have pending is 320 gave us their prints on October 26 last year. Primrose, Lovell, Holy Family, I would say first come, first served with the prints.
So you're saying the process is gonna be when they gave the board prints, but not the
Yeah.
Form K?
We haven't seen it, yeah.
Okay.
but the prints usually come with the Form K. We
We
just
haven't-
need to,
yeah, but the Form K is not the sewer approval. If it hasn't gone.
Right.
to
It says we got
commission
60
meeting, it
days
has-
to review it.
right, but what I was trying to say was when we get the Form K, we decided earlier that the plans that are with that will push forward to the commission. Am I correct in that?
No, what we're saying is that we've seen it. It goes on a list that we know it's in the pipeline. It's got nothing to do with the approvals.
Right, but
They
so if
come with
I,
a final plan.
so if I push that plan to you when the Form K comes in, then the next step will be they'll come before the board?
Right.
Okay. I just want, that's what I thought, and I just wanted to clarify that.
All right, so I have a question.
Shoot.
I know that there are ARPA funds at Town Hall that were approved and allocated to the sewer
Well,
department.
before we do that, let's focus on this moratorium. Are we going,
Well,
if we don't modify the moratorium, it's not going to be visited again until September.
all right, I have another question.
We got two.
Rather than change that 220 that's in the moratorium, is the sewer commissioner able to make an exception to the moratorium so that you can keep this and keep the EPA happy, yet make an exception to allow
I
those?
just want it in writing. I just want it, so that's why I'm saying, change it 230 to 35,000 gallons. Once, or let's say, let's even change it further to the sum of Dwyer and Monahan. And then we got to deal with Concord Meadows. So why don't we just say, put in a fact of that we remove 10,000 gallons of INI before we grant another permit. And again,
How much, 10,000?
then we're going to be back to how we deal with Beechwood and Concord. How long do we hold them open?
Shouldn't go over a year.
Well, they've already been over a year. So what I'm trying to say is they got 6 months from now to let us know.
So I have a question.
Yep.
The 10,000 gallons, are you basing that on the rolling out monthly average for 12 months?
No, I'm basing it on 10,000 gallons a day of inflow and infiltration. That what Dwyer and Monahan are putting in is what we got to take out before we issue another permit.
Oh. Okay.
Sherry, Dan, what do you think? Come on, help me out here. I don't want it all me.
I agree. I understand what you're doing. You're just clearing the deck so that we can get some projects rolling and start some funds coming in. So I agree.
Dan?
I see what you're going the right way.
Okay, so we changed condition 1 to 10,000 gallons. And I'll eliminate that I statement for now. We'll revisit that. We just got to get some funds in here. Condition 2, that I'm saying that no new permit should be issued at any time in 6 months prior to the application of 12-month rolling average if we're below the 2.20. That was 2.5. How do you want to handle that? Do we continue to issue permits if we know we're over capacity? Yes, we need the money, or we can't fight INI. Do we delete that? That's what I'm looking for. We beat this around for 3 months, 4 months before this. What do you want to do? Anybody?
I say you delete it because as you've stated before, we've never met it except twice in 3 years.
Dan?
I'll have to go with Sherry, delete it for now.
Okay. Okay, we're gonna have to delete 1.1 once 1.1 and 1.2 have been met. We could say condition 1 once that 10,000 gallons have been met.
So we're removing condition 2?
Yeah. I'll clean it up and send it to you Tuesday.
Thank you.
One point one, there'll be no new connection permit unless the flow exists. I think it stays. If we take out 10,000, we got 10,000 to give out. One point four has got to go.
Okay.
You agree or no?
No.
Sherry?
Yes,
No, you don't agree.
I agree for consistency.
Dan?
Yes.
I think we leave 1.6, no more than 2 at a regular scheduled meeting. 1.7, I think that's 60. If we stick with the 60-day review, that'll cover that. 1.7 should be able to come out. 1.8, we don't. That's got to come out. There's no way we're going to get 50,000 gallons out. A permit waiting list, I think we leave the permit waiting list as it is till we get
What number you on, Jeff?
1.9. The permit, we establish a permit waiting list. I say the waiting list, approved list, right now as it stands, delete everyone except Dwyer, Monahan, Concord, and Beechwood. Concord and Beechwood, I think we send them a letter saying they have 6 months to notify the board of their intentions, or their permits will be rescinded. I have a thought on that from anyone? Sherry? Dan?
I agree, 6 months, that's it.
Yep. I
6
agree.
months to start their project or come back in front of the board? I missed what you said. I'm sorry.
I don't know. I gotta talk to Bob Galvin how he wants to word that.
I mean,
We can't leave it open forever. We're gonna be waiting for him.
give them 6 months and then they have to come back from a new permit.
Because I don't want them coming back and saying, hey, you gave my capacity out. I was here before them. I'll talk to Galvin on that tomorrow. I mean, Tuesday. Okay, 1.9. Let's get this one squared away. A position on the waiting list, waiting for capacity, will be established when the applicants present their final project plans to the Board of Sewer Commissioners. Form K does not satisfy that requirement. If we have multiple people on an approved list, say one cup applicant wants 1,000, another one wants 2,000. How do we handle that? That's gonna be the key. I think it's gotta be the date. That if they come in and if they say on January 1, we approve them for 2,000. And the next, we can't give another one out till that 2,000 is removed. That's what we said before, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I'll reword that.
So 1.9C, I don't know if you can put a limit on that as a municipality. Can't people go on that waiting list? I mean, it could be indefinite, but don't they have to be on the list if they want to?
That's
Or
good
have a
point.
project?
I don't know. Let me check with Galvin on that one. Again, I'm looking for help here, people. I'm just trying to
Can
figure.
we, all right, here's a question. Can we make a condition for going on the waiting list, provided they're going to be ready to connect in 12 months?
Yeah,
I mean, then the long-term people will be kept off the list and won't be holding up anybody else.
Dave, what's your thought on that?
I'm gonna leave this up to you guys, so.
If they're not gonna be ready, they're not ready after a year and a half.
Right.
They're ready to go along.
All right, let's do this. Let me clean it up. Get rid of this. Let's focus on getting that 10,000 gallons freed up. Getting those funds and getting that 10,000 gallons removed. There's repair work that's stated in the SSES that should give us that. If we hit that pipeline on Memorial Park, we should be able to do that. So why don't we leave the moratorium as is with the exception of condition 1. Drop that to 10,000 gallons and eliminate condition 2. Dan,
Yes.
Sherry,
I agree.
Okay, let's have a vote on that. Leave the moratorium as is with dropping condition 1 to 10,000 gallons. Do I have a motion on that?
I'll make the motion.
Second,
Approved, Mr. DeRoss,
Yes,
Ms. Valley,
approve.
and I'm a yes, so we drop that. I make a motion that do I have a motion to drop condition 2 completely?
Motion,
yes.
Do I have a second on that? Dan, do you want to second that?
Oh, yes, that is, you heard me, yes.
Okay, I have a motion, I have a second. Mr. DeRoss, how do you vote on removing of condition 2? Yes or no?
Yes.
Ms. Valley?
vote yes.
And I'm a yes, that's out. Those will be the only changes with the exception of 1.4. I think let's go 1.4. Let's go to 1.4. There'll be no new connections at any time if it's 6 months prior to the date of application. The 12-month rolling average exceeds, I think it reads 2.5. Do I have a motion to delete 1.4?
Yes.
Oh. Second,
Mr. DeRoss, how do you vote on removing 1.4?
Yes,
Ms. Valley?
yes.
And I'm a yes, that's unanimous. I make a motion, do I have a motion to remove 1.8, that the sewer department will allocate 50,000 gallons of sewer capacity? We want to just make that 10,000 gallons to be consistent. We will allocate 10,000 gallons.
I'll make the motion.
Second,
Second,
do I have a vote? We have a motion and a second. Do we have a vote to change 1.8 to 10,000 gallons?
Wasn't that the motion?
I thought, oh, okay, if that was it, yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, and there's the vote. I'm going to talk to Galvin about 1.9. Okay, right now I'm going to clean up what we have. We'll vote on the final moratorium next month in May. We got a big agenda next month, next week. If we want to have if we want to have a meeting in beforehand together, a working group to hammer this out, we could do that. I'll leave it up to the other board members if they want to have that. I think right now getting through the applications for the new superintendent should be precedent.
Okay.
But any change of thought that you want to have a working meeting, and I'll call a meeting.
all right. Would it be acceptable if I contact Robin or Dave about just the projects in general?
Pardon me?
I'd like to know who has paid their fees and who is actually connected and so forth, just to get up to speed.
Dave, Robin, maybe you could put out a list to us next week.
That went out today, Robin, didn't it?
Okay.
Yes, I sent it out today, but Sherry, anytime you want to come down, I can go over anything that you need.
All right, let me look at the list.
Okay, so I'll free up that 10 grand. Superintendent update. Dave, do you have a chance to get any more quotes on Memorial Park? Or is that, what's going on there anyway?
All set. It's scheduled for next week with AECom.
How, are they gonna just tell us how much the flow is, or,
Well, they already did. They already made
oh,
reference
the
to
Yeti
that.
900? Are they gonna repair it or just confirm it?
They can't repair it. That's going to be the disconnect from the present school. So what they're going to do is they're going to quantify what we have there. And once the disconnect is done, they'll come back out and quantify the flow after that point, and then it'll tell us where we're at with the I&I on that pipe. We also, so we have them that'll go under the SSES study because we still have some money left in that article for I&I. So it was just so they're going to come out and do that. We also have them set to do Jefferson School too, because that's going to be a disconnect as well. So we'll do a before and after at Jefferson. And then we're also going to do Holy Family School, where that's obviously, I think that's gonna be an issue up there with the old infrastructure at the school. And they'll do the, where it ties in on the Delphi, so we'll have a before and after there too, so. We have a read on the infrastructure, so it's a day rate, so we're able to get all three of those projects done in a day.
Great.
It's a little over 7,000, so.
Okay, so there's that next item on the installation of flow meters is a moot point.
Yeah, because like I said, I checked into that, and those range from $10,000 to $20,000, but we don't. I mean, Suez isn't comfortable monitoring those, and they don't have the one. They don't have the manpower, and two, they've never done it before, and they're not sure where the liability would lie if something happened to a portable flow meter somehow got into the system. So where we had the leftover money from that article, I just thought it would be wise to where you were requesting to get Memorial Park done. So they
that's
gave
not
us a day rate, and then it was like fairly reasonable, and we could get that back. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Just out of curiosity, what is the projected flow for the new school per day?
Geez, I don't have that old.
You don't need to know. Maybe if you could get that to us by, say, next
Yeah,
meeting.
I have it on an old build out sheet, so I only have the current build out sheets in front of me, so.
I know, if you can get that for us soon, what the projected flow is per day.
Yeah. Keep in mind, they're saying obviously with the combination of taking down the two schools, and then also when we did research on it, the sump pumps in all those schools, Jefferson has 2, Memorial Park has 3. Those are presently tied into the active sewer system, the sump pumps, also the floor drains at both of those schools. And also at Memorial Park, there was the old field drainage overflow that was actually tied into the sewer manhole on the back side of that property too.
Yeah, no, I just want to know what the new school's projecting for flow, because
Yeah,
that's all we'll go on.
yeah, I can forward that to the board.
With that, Mary, you're the only public here. You have anything you want to add in? Mary?
Yes, could I have a copy of I think it's your moratorium that you were reading from that wasn't attached to your agenda? You just said discussion of modification.
I
All
could
of
have put it
that
up.
should have
You're
been
right.
attached to your agenda.
You're right. My sorry, it should have been attached to the agenda.
And second of all, you're according to EPA, you are over and in violation 11 months out of 12 in terms of your capacity.
I agree.
So do you have, I got to ask this question because there's money that's going to go for inflow and infiltration. And it sounds like you're piecemealing projects, that you're going to let projects hook up according to how much they're going to add to the overflow that we have currently. And it's like piecemeal. Do you have any systems development fee that these developers should be charged so that you can do maintenance? Otherwise, you're still behind the 8 ball.
We are behind the 8 ball. I agree completely with you. What I'm trying to do is
the way that you can develop, like the water department has a systems development fee, a flat rate that developers have to pay if they don't agree to it. And I've seen them do this. They don't get to do their project, and it's never a problem. And they say that they don't have the money to pay that fee, but when they're told that they have to, or there's no project, 2 weeks later, they come with the check.
Mary, that's what we're trying to do with this I&I fee now.
Yeah, but no, I&I is separate from what I'm talking about.
Okay, what are you talking about?
A separate fee from I&I. Because the I&I money needs to go to I&I. It should not be going to repairing anything. That's what I'm talking about. You having 2 different fees.
Okay.
The other
I see
issue
where you're coming from.
is everyone needs to know what your budget looks like now, because it's getting towards the end of the year. Exactly what do you have for money to do any kind of maintenance?
Well, that's in the budget, right, Dave?
Well, so currently, right now, what you have is you have the sewer developmental fee. That's based on, like, say, if you had Concord Street, that's on per unit. And then you also have the sewer tie-in fee. Again, that's based on per unit, and all those numbers went up, I believe, in July. I wasn't here, but that was when
Yep.
The former was on, so you did go up on the numbers on that.
We went up
And then-
significantly.
Right, and then you have the sewer remediation fee for I removal based on, the 110 and the bedroom schedule, and you also went up on that in July from 10 to 20. So, I mean, obviously your fees are all gonna go up across the board. But I mean, Mary actually brings up a good point where you could add another fee, if you wanted to, a maintenance fee for infrastructure maintenance fee at some point if you wanted. Again, that is dependent upon the board, but you also just went up significantly. You doubled your price per gallon on the remediation, your fee per unit, and also your fee per unit for sewer developmental fee. And that was just July 2021, so.
Right, those fees though are market indicative. That's what basically
Right.
everyone else is.
Right, I mean, you haven't gone up on fees at sewer in quite a while, so.
Yeah, they haven't gone up since 2004. So that's-
No, it makes sense, makes perfect sense, honestly.
So what I guess what Mary's saying is add a maintenance fee to that, a yearly maintenance fee. How can we do that?
You would have to,
How does water do it?
you would have to check in with water. I haven't even looked into that. I mean, these, like I said, Robin and I have done this matrix, and that started on my first round in 2020, and she cleaned it up and then it sets up the fee schedule from that point. So this, this is currently what we have. So obviously the board could do approvals and upgrades on this fee schedule if you wanted to.
See, I'm hesitant until we see this rate study, to be honest with you.
Well, the rate studies,
And that's a year out, 8
right,
months out.
yeah.
Well, in the meantime, you gotta do something, and could I have a copy of the moratorium modifications?
Pardon me?
Could I have a copy of the moratorium modifications?
I'll clean that up and get it to you.
Okay, thank you.
I'll tell you what, I'll send you a copy of as it is.
Okay,
Changes, and the changes we're suggesting tonight will be follow up sometime next week.
okay, thank you.
Okay, if that's it, what I'll do is I'll take a motion to adjourn the meeting until adjourn the meeting tonight's meeting. The next meeting will be Thursday night.
I'll make the motion. The end of meeting.
Do I have a second?
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Ross,
I,
Ms. Valley,
yes.
and I'm a yes. I'll see you next Thursday night.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.